What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another live stream here. Bear with, actually, I've got a couple things I need to take care of. Let me know for now if you can hear me okay, and if you can see me okay. That's the most important thing for right now. Actually, you can't see me, so I won't be surprised if you say you can't see me. But let me know if you can at least hear me for now. All right. And we should be good. All right. How's everyone doing? Welcome back to another live stream here. How are we doing in the live chat? We've got a little bit of Bitcoin price action today. Bitcoin just slipped below 114k, and we've managed to recover it a little bit here right after announcing the live stream, which is pretty cool. So we've got some interesting price actions to take a look at today. Obviously, potentially breaking a range today. Let's actually see how the S&P is doing. Yeah, S&P has dropped pretty hard. Hey, you know what? Considering how hard the S&P dropped, Bitcoin hasn't dropped by very much, has it? So we'll be covering that in this YouTube video, in this live stream. If you are excited for this, do me a favor and smash up those likes. We've only got 9 likes up in this live stream right now. We got to do a hell of a lot better than that. We've even got Ghost. What's up, Ghost? He just he thinks he's getting treats. He's not. Well, here, you can have one. Ghost, up. Nah. Yeah, let me know how we're all doing in the live chat. Smash them up, ladies and gents, as you are coming in. And tell me, you feeling bullish or are you feeling bearish in this market right now? Do you think that we're entering an opportunity zone, more importantly? Do you think that this is a zone where opportunities are, or really are you just thinking this is shit and you hate everything? Let me know what the consensus is today in the live chat. Cisco is long. That's very, very cool. And yeah, let me know where you're watching from. We got Peter from New York. What's up, Peter? Welcome to the live stream. Crypto Info, do your own research, says he is a perma bull. I agree with that statement, to be honest. I'm definitely a perma bull as well. You can't not be a perma bull. You know what's funny, ladies and gents? Before we just kick off this stream, just waiting for a couple more people to trickle on and smash up those likes as well. Let me know where you're watching from today as you are coming into this live stream. You know what's funny is that I've had people telling me throughout this market cycle that I'm too fucking bullish. Can you believe it? I've had people saying that I'm like, and they'd roll their eyes and they'd be like, this guy comes on stream and all he's going to do is say that the market's going up. And it's like, yeah, bitch, you're absolutely right. I've been saying that the price is going to go up for the entire market cycle and I haven't been wrong. So yeah, quite proudly, actually, a perma bull. Perma bulls have been making money. It's a bull market. Okay, that's how it works. So, absolutely fantastic stuff. Yeah, shout out to Peter from New York. We got Bill from Milwaukee. What's going on, Bill? Good to see you again. Cisco from South Africa. What's going on, man? Hope everything's at least getting a little bit better out there. We got Crime Spills from California. What's going on? Middle of the North Sea. Okay, you can't just leave me there, bro. What do you mean, middle of the North Sea? I need to know what you mean by that. Home of orange hair, Washington D.C. Brilliant. You're actually in the home of pedophiles, I'd say. But sure, we can go with that. Blake from Spain. What's going on? We got Bangladesh in the house. Netherlands. What's going on? Cheers from Seattle. Welcome to the live stream, ladies and gents. Smash them up as you are coming in. What's going on, Ghost? Mario says, I'm feeling bullish, opportunity zone, getting ready to find strong support areas, S&P being propped up by great tech earnings. S&P is not being propped up, unless you mean that it's not dropping as hard as it could have dropped, in which case I agree with you. Job revisions went negative, creating an impulsive scare, rate cuts in September. Yeah, you know what? It looks like rate cuts could finally happen in September. I mean, granted, I've been saying this for a while, but it looks like they're kind of like finally on the horizon. So we'll see how that goes. 170 viewers. Welcome to the live stream, ladies and gents. Smash up those likes as you are coming in here. We are just about to kick things off. We got Luxembourg, Slovenia. Yeah, I'm not hearing many. I'm hearing, I think, more Americans these days than Europeans. Where are my European brothers at? Like, where you guys at, brothers and sisters? Where you guys at? We got Netherlands, Bulgaria, Slovenia, Luxembourg. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Where are my Euro friends? Where you guys at? UK, what's up, UK? England, yeah. Love that. I mean, I love, you know me. I love the country. I just think it's run like shit right now, but we won't get into that. GeoRider from California, what's going on? Londoner living in Egypt. Very, very cool. Very, very cool. Is today Bitcoin options expiration? I don't know. I don't really query stuff like that. Lithuania, what's going on? We got Indonesia. Free tax for crypto transaction in my country by today. That is very, very cool. Montana, what's up, Montana? All right, ladies and gents, we're going to kick this off. And the number one thing... Oh, what have I done? The number one thing that I want to draw your attention to... Ghost, place. All right, we're gonna kick this off right here. So the number one thing I want to draw your attention over to today is this drop right here. And the thing about this drop Bitcoin is seeing right now is we have already kind of kicked this drop off basically from hitting the top of this resistance range, okay? And we haven't fallen out of this parallel descending channel. It's exactly the same pattern that we used to get here in the first place, which I think is, kind of funny. And it's also the same pattern that came before and before that. So we're just kind of doing them differently. Sometimes they're angled moving up. Sometimes they're angled moving down. They are the same pattern. What they are in terms of an umbrella term is they are continuation patterns. Okay, so with continuation patterns, essentially all you're doing is you're, trading sideways a little bit, or, trading against the trend in this case a little bit. Of course, the trend is up. You're trading against that trend a little bit, and you're able to kind of start gathering some, momentum to make that next move. So that's pretty much all that's happened so far. We managed to top out at the resistance of this parallel channel. It's the same pattern that we've already produced in order to get up here in the first place. And I think that, with that in mind, this is looking good. We haven't lost our support level. If we do, which could definitely happen even during this live stream, then yeah, things could get a little bit shit for Bitcoin, and we'll cover that in just a moment. Smash up the likes as you are coming in here, ladies and gents. I want to see at least 50 just as we kick this off right here. We things could get a little bit, worse for Bitcoin if we do lose this level that we're at right now, but that hasn't happened yet, and until it happens, I'm not in the business of saying that it's gonna happen. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just gonna wait. I'm not trigger happy like that, ladies and gents. I'm here to make money. I'm not here for excitement, okay? And that's a really important distinction, which frankly most people don't make. Most people don't want to make that distinction. I don't know what the deal is. Honestly, I don't really care for it because I think it's silly. We're here to make money, not to enjoy ourselves, to be honest. Almost feels like that's like a taboo, like negative thing to say these days, but yeah, like, I'm not here for enjoyment. I have a Ferrari parked downstairs. I'll do that for enjoyment. I don't need enjoyment out of these markets. I just want money out of these markets, ladies and gents. Am I saying something revolutionary? Am I saying something that blows minds today? Or are we all in agreement on that? Let me know in the live chat. But yeah, brilliant continuation pattern, and we are still holding on here. So that's absolutely fantastic. But this is going to be dependent on the S&P 500. And I've been saying for a while, ladies and gents, that the chance of, a kind of, what's the word? Like, what word am I looking for? The chance, I'm losing all of my words today. The chance of a pullback for the S&P 500 is, quite high, I would say, at this stage, just purely kind of based off the fact that, it had rallied up for a long time, right? And this is something that we were quite acutely aware of on this YouTube channel, from breaking the all-time high, or actually from here to, the top that we set just, yesterday, I think it was. It's been quite an aggressive move up, pretty much no pullbacks. So, of course, a pullback does make sense. this is a pretty clear sign, the fact that it's pulling back pretty sharply as we close this weekly candle. Bear in mind that, of course, there is a weekend of trading action now, so we're blessed with essentially the worst setup for a weekend trading session in crypto. It could get pretty volatile and pretty nonsensical pretty quick. We will, of course, cover that also a little bit later on in this live stream. Once again, smash them up, ladies and gents, as you are tuning into this live stream. I want to get these likes pushed up so that we can push this live stream out, quite frankly, so that people who are subscribed but the algorithm doesn't like them will will surface it to them, or maybe it's me the algorithm doesn't like. I don't know. I don't want to play that game. But yeah, lots to cover in this one. I think S&P 500 is going to be the star of the show just for the first bit of this live stream, though, because it has gapped down, and, you know, coming in on a Friday, this definitely implies weakness on Monday and for the rest of next week. So, you know, like, I mean, there's no support here, right? That's the bottom line. You know, there was a tiny bit of kind of sideways trading that happened here for the S&P 500, but I really wouldn't say that that's enough to support this index higher, and because of that, it might have to come back down for a deeper retest. And I'd say that retest can happen, honestly, kind of anywhere, like from, you know, let me just make this a yellow line. You know, anywhere kind of between these two yellow lines, which looks like 6037 up to 6100. You know, any of these two levels kind of make sense for a bit of a pullback to, you know, watch this market basically get, you know, this index basically get back up above some of these, you know, support levels and actually get above these all-time highs. So I think, you know, back test is in play. We've started it. We don't have to finish it. We don't have to, you know, completely back test it and come back down to the previous all-time high, but it would be unusual if we didn't, you know. I think that we're certainly kind of set up to do that. That doesn't mean we will, but I do believe that we've got the setup for it. And, you know, with that in mind, this to me does probably look like, you know, a situation where it might go for that full retest. I've just repeated myself like 5 times in a row. You know what? I think I need a Zen, ladies and gents, because this ain't working. I'm gonna have to I'm gonna have to wake myself up. There we go. We'll be back. I was thinking, do I need a Zen before this live stream? I was like, nah, I don't need it, but we're live and it ain't going well, so we'll do that. We'll do that. So, you know, what does that imply for Bitcoin? I mean, you know, like I said, I think that Bitcoin's done pretty well considering, you know, where the S&P 500 is. It hasn't really, you know, dropped in any particularly scary way. It does have, you know, a pretty decent zone of support, a little bit lower at like 109, 110, whatever. And there's plenty of talk about people trying to take on, you know, even some potential long positions. Where's my favorite bar? What's going on? Okay, there it is. Let's put that right there. And so, you know, with that in mind, I mean, you know, we could totally like come back down, you know, somewhere into these ranges, grab a little bit of support, and then continue moving up. But I really think that this is going to depend on, you know, the equivalent level for Bitcoin to S&P 500's previous all-time high. You know, I think that the S&P 500's previous all-time high is going to be probably the key level to watch. And if it is, you know, what's the equivalent for Bitcoin? Honestly, I don't really know. But I think that, you know, kind of mid, you know, like anywhere kind of from 100 to 110, you know, makes sense. Maybe the middle of that range, 106. Honestly, you know, a lot of people have opinions about this right now. And, you know, notoriously, I haven't, because I don't really see support in this range, right? Ultimately, like, what are the two ranges, right? So for me, it ends right about here. It ends at about like 98, 97, and it probably starts at like, you know, 109, right? That's kind of what I'm looking at as far as support. But where is the support in this range? Well, you know, if we're just looking at the price action here, then most of that support happens between 102 and 109, right? So it's a big range. It's an $8,000 price range. It's not really super tradable for that reason alone. You know, but if we kind of go back to what happened, you know, late 2024, early 25, we have lots of stuff going on, you know, in the low hundreds as well. So it's actually quite hard for me to pick out where, you know, the support level might be for Bitcoin. Like I said, everybody's got an opinion on this. I'm hearing a lot of people trying to go long, you know, around this 109K level, which does make sense. But I don't really think that measures up to the S&P 500. And also with that weekend, in between, the S&P is going to stop trading. And by the way, we need to be very clear on something, like we need to get a little bit of context out of the way, because if this is something that you guys don't get, then the whole video is going to be, quite hard for you to access. But, to be honest, these drops, like, they are what enable Bitcoin to drop, right? Like, I mean, Bitcoin can drop on its own in a vacuum, but for the most part, it's actually going to be able to hold on as long as the S&P 500 is doing good. But when it's not, that's when you start to see these drops coming in. So, this all started on Thursday at midday UTC. And for the S&P 500, the drops also started precisely on Thursday around midday at UTC time zone. So I don't think it's any coincidence whatsoever. Let me make this even more clear for you and just put Bitcoin on the side. And we're going to take this onto the 4-hour. And let's just take a look at this right here. Just looking at my vertical line, it's obviously in, the exact same place, right? Like where the S&P 500 starts to take a shit, that is immediately where Bitcoin starts to take a shit as well. So that's not surprising. That's not something that we were struggling to see. In fact, if you've been watching this channel for a while, you're going to know that actually we were expecting only this to happen. Probably, I don't want to say only, but we were definitely expecting this to happen more than other things that could possibly happen in this market. And that is purely because the S&P started to look overextended. So I thought that actually, if Trump comes back from Scotland and, he's back in DC, he might try and pump the markets again, have a rock star entrance. But I don't know. It looks like that's not happening. It's probably an oversimplified view into the market anyway. So I think that that's a really important kind of first principle to understand. If that's not something you already knew, or if that's something that you learned from this channel, or if you're just finding this useful so far, do me a favor and smash up those likes. I want to get this thing above 100. We got over 250 people in this live. So every time you guys are pumping up the likes, it is clearly working. We're pushing this live stream out a little bit more. Smash them up if you are finding this video useful so far. I do really appreciate it. And those of you that are looking for a home to trade on, the two links at the top of the description are going to be your best places to trade for sure in these markets. Bybit remains the absolute best in the market, and 𝗙𝗢𝗟 has some pretty impressive tech, honestly quite similar to Bybit and others anyway. But the team has also been putting out exclusive chart updates on, actionable things that we're watching in real time on 𝗙𝗢𝗟. So that's exclusive to 𝗙𝗢𝗟. Check it out if you're interested. Only use these links if you're not from a restricted region. But let's bring it back right here. And what does that translate to for Bitcoin? I mean, one way to look at it is just kind of, let's bring Bitcoin back for a second. And let's just see where Bitcoin was when the S&P broke out. Bitcoin was right here. At 107. So, it lines up with that range. That definitely makes sense. A little bit earlier than that, Bitcoin was also roughly at the same kind of price range. Yeah, 109. So it definitely could be that this kind of 107, 109 range lines up for Bitcoin to find a little bit of support if it does end up continuing to drop. It would make sense given, where the S&P was when it was at those levels. But I do feel like that's kind of an oversimplified, way to view the market. I don't really think that it's fully realistic or gives full credit to Bitcoin's autonomy, because it does have some degree of autonomy as well. And so that's why I'm really defining this range as 97, 98. And I think one of the other big reasons that I like this 97, 98K kind of level to look at is because nobody really wants to discuss those ideas right now. Like we're all quite comfortable saying that Bitcoin can fall down to 109, but what happens when it falls down to 109 and it looks, doesn't mean it will, but it looks like it's going to keep dumping? At that point, you're going to start saying levels like 98K are in play, but I think it's a lot better to be mentally prepared for those levels now rather than, panic and then readjust your targets to the downside on the fly. I think that 98 is in play, and we could probably validate this with the VPVR. I want to go ahead and throw that on the fixed range volume profile. Throw that onto the chart right about here. And we can get an idea of, okay, so we got the value area high here, which is actually a really big deal. So I am going to put a kind of permanent horizontal line on this chart down here just for a little bit at least. And then we're seeing another spike at about 104 and another spike at about 101. And then the next big spikes kind of start down at 98, right? That's where you can, and obviously this builds to the point of control, which right now sits at about 96K, which of course we're also quite well aware of, how that's looking. So I think these are, a pretty, decent kind of like set of support levels to watch for the market. But, if you're looking to trade this shit, you can't really, it's not easy to identify an entry or a stop loss. To me, that makes this more or less a no trade zone. I hate to say it, but it just is what it is. I'm not here to lie to you, to hype you up, or do any of that low quality YouTuber stuff. This is just the grounded truth that I see. There's a lot of support levels in this range, and I honestly do not favor any of them over another one. But I totally understand why a lot of people are probably looking to kind of buy this, 109 down to like 107 range. It does make sense. I can see why people would do that. I just don't feel comfortable being so confident in that zone. Dunder Thunder is asking a really good question. Why don't I just go short then? As far as going short, and by the way, we are dropping right now, so we're gonna go ahead and get the degenerate time frame right here on the right hand side of the chart, so that we can see this thing crash in real time. You can watch yourself lose money a little bit more zoomed in, and we'll just put that on the side right there. Why not go short? I mean, you know what? I think a short is actually a pretty decent idea if, Bitcoin kind of comes back up and does something like this. That can turn into a rejection. So, that's something that I think is probably worth watching a little bit. But, I do think that, goes place. I do think that, look at that. It's fighting. It's fighting. Like, it looks like this could... I think if we sweep this low, let's see. We're just on the edge of that right now. I think if we sweep that low, things could get a little bit red for Bitcoin. I think there's also, we have to discuss the risk of a deviation, right? We've got this, descending channel here. We're more or less just at the bottom of this range right now. So like I said, if you lose this, it could get a little bit shit. We'll talk about that in just a moment. But this is definitely a bounce zone for Bitcoin just with this in mind. Let's see if there's any indicators that kind of support that. 4-hour Ichimoku, we've lost it. Daily Ichimoku, we haven't even hit it yet. Daily EMA ribbon, we're getting close to the bottom. I like it though. I like it. It ends at about 112. I don't know if we're going to be able to use that if we lose this parallel channel here. We're kind of running out of support, aren't we? Yeah, we're running out of support, so that's not great. Dominance is dropping. Okay, that's interesting. If dominance is dropping, it's not dropping by much. No, I wouldn't call this a drop. I wouldn't. Yeah, I mean, it obviously did drop a little bit, but like it's marginal. It's not enough to kind of draw any conclusions off right now. It's only down by 0.2%. So I think it's kind of. I think Bitcoin's kind of running out of support a little bit here. So that could definitely be a problem for Bitcoin. Now, what happens if we lose this parallel channel? Essentially, if we lose this parallel channel, it's not going to be great because it means that we're losing, a pretty consistent, reliable, continuation pattern, right? One of the things I said right at the beginning of this live stream today is, Bitcoin has done this thing of kind of moving up, you consolidate upwards, move up, consolidate, angled higher. In this case, we move up and consolidate angled down, which is typical for all markets. This is not typical, for all markets, but it is typical for Bitcoin. And, in other markets, what happens, if I just break this down for you all for a second, this is pure gold. Smash up the likes for this, ladies and gents. You'll see the market kind of going up a little bit like this, and then... it'll kind of slow down, but it'll still keep going up, and this will suggest to a lot of kind of more traditional finance traders that you're actually losing momentum. If you look at the kind of angle of attack here, the price is moving up pretty aggressively, and it's clearly losing its aggression here. So this is a sign that, you might get something perhaps a little bit more like this, or usually actually faster. I can't really draw it, but something a little bit like that, is typically what would follow. And the difference is with crypto, it's so aggressive, right? So when you do this, it doesn't mean that the market is losing momentum. It means that the market cannot, adequately cool off. And it's still, staying super aggressive, like even while it's consolidating, it's aggressive. That's the conclusion I've always kind of drawn from these patterns. Look at this. We're watching this low right here. Eyes on the right-hand side. There we go. We've swept that low. But we're not really doing anything right now. Yeah, we'll continue here for a second. So, I've always kind of read this as aggression for Bitcoin. And, what that aggression suggests essentially is that you're going to pop up again. And obviously, that's what happened. This is something we've been saying, on this YouTube channel for years, many, many years, like 7 years maybe. Smash up the likes and subscribe, by the way, if you are just tuning in here. Welcome to the live stream. If you are just tuning in, feel free to rewind. I don't tend to repeat stuff too much in these live streams. I do repeat it a little bit. But yeah, we did end up kind of, getting a pump out of these patterns. And then obviously the more conventional one is that you fight the trend. And essentially, this is a chance for people that want to offload to offload. The fact that you're kind of trending lower scares, especially the newcomer type traders. So, that's something to keep an eye out for. But it's a standard, continuation pattern. And this is my point, is that we're in one right now. And what I really like is the back-to-back nature of these patterns, right? I really can't downplay this, with you guys. I really want you guys to understand, at least from my perspective, why I believe this is important, which is that, we're repeatedly forming the same pattern. Yes, in this case, it's angled up, and in this case, it's angled down, but it is the same thing. And, that to me makes these kind of patterns really strong, like you're clearly, like the market is clearly validating these patterns for us. The market is clearly telling us, guys, let's try and keep this chat in English if we can. I mean, I don't mind if we're doing a little bit of different languages, but I can't respond to you if you're speaking in a different language. And so if we do lose this level, what we're losing is a really good opportunity to pump. And not only to pump, but to pump up to 130, 140k. So, no, there's not something to be sorry about at all. I mean, you rock on if you want, but just bear in mind I won't be able to respond. Yeah, but that's unfortunate because you really want to you really want to be able to use these patterns, because if you don't, you might have to drop a fair bit lower in order to kind of capture some support, and it might not be as easy as bam, then you're back up, and which I think a lot of people are expecting. Again, it's not a Bitcoin question. It's something that we repeat over and over and over on this YouTube channel. This is something that does depend completely, I would say, or 95% plus on the S&P 500, right? Like I pointed out to you earlier on, this dump only happened because the S&P 500 started to dump, right? It's the same money that moves these indices. It's the same money that moves Bitcoin. So, with that in mind, I think for sure we're going to have to see how this goes. And, like I said, I mean, this is a good support level, so I wouldn't be too worried about it, but it might not be as clean as, this previous, when Trump gave us the literal buy signal and told us to buy the stock market at the absolute low. It might not be that simple. You know what I mean? So that's something that I'm going to kind of keep an eye out for, because it'll probably, quite directly influence what Bitcoin ends up doing. If the S&P has, a sharp, kind of move up, then this is possible. But, if the S&P kind of hangs out for a little bit, down at that level, it can turn into a serious problem, So it's something that I think is definitely, worth paying attention to in this market. Someone said, look how strong XRP is. We'll take a look at that right now as well. XRP is looking pretty good. It's actually gaining against Bitcoin right now, which is particularly impressive. It's managed to bounce off this zone that we were watching for a little bit. I basically call this like the midpoint for XRP BTC in this range, which is, it's a good sign. It's a good sign that we're bouncing off this midpoint. Granted, if we don't, then we're probably returning, closer to the bottom of this range, which is going to put XRP against Bitcoin at about 2,200 Satoshis, which is fine, but it would represent a setback for XRP as well. And then XRP against the dollar, still looking pretty decent, holding above $3. It clearly doesn't want to drop. However, at this point, if it does drop, we've already had one wick below this $3 zone. Just today, we were below this $3 zone. In fact, if we take a look at this on the hourly, the XRP chart has just recovered up over the last few hours here. And to me, what that means is, we're trying. This market is trying to kind of keep its head above water, and in this case, water would essentially be, the $3 level, which I will draw with this horizontal line. If XRP conclusively breaks this level, it's probably going to see, a decent drop lower, down into its next support zone. And, for me on this chart, that next support zone is going to be about $2.63. It's, previously been a zone of resistance. We even back tested it as support. So this zone could definitely be in play for XRP. We'll continue to keep an eye out for that throughout this live stream and future videos as well, for those of you that are subscribed. When XRP drops, it hurts. Yeah, it's probably because most XRP holders are over invested. And to be fair, XRP does drop pretty violently. Here's Bitcoin nearly sweeping that low right there. Let's see. It looks like Bitcoin's going for it. So, yeah, there we go. It's pushing. How do we feel, ladies and gents? Let me know in the live chat. Do you think that we're going to be bouncing off the 109K kind of zone, or do you think that actually it's probably going to drop a little bit lower? Let me know if you guys have any kind of opinions there. There's no shame in this at all. We could even put a poll in here, but I want to see some comments first, just to kind of hear some reasoning as well. We got somebody here saying gotta buy when people are scared to buy. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. We got a couple of people saying we're gonna bounce from here, which we better do it now. Basically, I mean, and this is something that I think is worth noting, right? Is typically if you are gonna bounce, you tend to bounce pretty quickly, right? I mean, if you look at the lows on XRP, XRP didn't hang around at these lows, right? Even on the slow one here, it was still pretty quick to recover back up. Typically when you're just kind of hanging around for a little bit, I mean, in this case we did get a pump, but it didn't hold, right? Like when you're just kind of like consolidating at a low, that's what typically comes right before dropping. So I mean, we are only on the minute time frame. This is not like a large enough time frame to kind of evaluate this, but my point is that if we can't produce that pump up, now, like pretty soon, then we might lose our chance. And again, I don't think that, like the probabilities are stacked in Bitcoin's favor with, what's happening on the S&P. Let's bring that chart back up though. There we go. We are losing that level. Let's see. This is moving. It is moving. Yeah, the S&P, if I just bring that up on the left-hand side of the screen here, let's put this on the 5-minute. It is still kind of, dropping right now. If I think, if it's sweep, let's see how long this, there's only an hour left on the S&P 500, but, if it does end up sweeping this low down here, that could be a problem. So we'll see how that goes. This is, it's kind of, I don't know, man. Like, this isn't looking great. Like I said, only the minute time frame. I don't want to get too, engrossed in analyzing it, but yeah, I think that's something to watch out for. Here's Ethereum against Bitcoin. If we look at this on the 4-hour, pretty decent drop right here, continuing to get rejected at resistance. This is not a bad sign, as long as Ethereum holds this level, which is 0.3 BTC per token, it's probably gonna stay in a good posture, I think, at least, in my opinion, and then find itself in a position where it can kind of pop again. Maybe not now, maybe in a couple of weeks even. It might not be quick, but it is looking good. However, if it does lose this level, and I think especially if it loses this low right here, that's probably going to be a sign that it's weak enough to now kind of really tumble a little bit lower, which would be quite nice. It would be quite nice to see that, because then we get to start putting some fibs on this chart, and looking for and this is something that I covered with you guys quite a while back, because frankly this market has moved quite slowly, where I said that essentially when Ethereum does eventually reverse, you might not buy the bottom, which is realistic, right? Like, it's not easy to buy the bottom. And if you were trying to buy the bottom, you would probably be quite, heavily underwater right now on Ethereum. But another way to do this with a lot less risk is just wait for the market to prove itself to you, which I think, this is going to depend on what you define as proving itself to you. But for me, the market has proven itself. It's shown me that actually, things are pretty bullish. It's had, quite a significant reversal, I feel, like if we put this on the daily time frame here and, really take a look at what's happened. I mean, this is a fairly sizable move up. In fact, it's basically a 50% move up from the buy zone that I told you guys about. 77%. My goodness, never mind. And so that's a pretty decent kind of recovery. I don't know if we haven't really seen this. Yeah, like the biggest moves we got during this downtrend were 20 in the 20% kind of range, 20 to 30. So this is significantly more powerful than any recovery we've seen so far. And that makes it, a lot more sensible to start kind of looking at, Fibonacci levels, for a retracement. And I'm not saying that Ethereum is going to come anywhere near these levels. It might not even lose this range, like I said. But if it does, that does start to give us some really, really good entries on altcoins. And Ethereum is obviously just, one of many. There's many coins that would, kind of check these boxes here. So we'll definitely see how that continues to play out as time goes on. Let's see what questions we've got here in the live chat before I do continue on. We're only 3 likes away from 100, ladies and gents. Smash them up if you haven't done so already. Adam is saying we got bullish divergences everywhere. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, we can take a look at that in just a moment. We almost gonna bounce, I think. Yeah, well, let's see. This is it. So if we're gonna bounce from anywhere, it's got to be from right here, and it's looking decent. I mean, we're trying. I think if Bitcoin can clear this, if Bitcoin can clear 114k, that'll be pretty good to signal at least a short-term recovery. It doesn't mean the recovery will stick, but it could at least be a short-term recovery, so that would be pretty cool. Looks like $3 is the fair price for XRP. It definitely could be. Like I said, if it does lose this level, just the fact that it's already wicked below it a few days ago, now it's wicking below it again today. I think that if it does lose this level, it'll turn into a fairly significant dump, another kind of 10%, maybe even more, depending on how low it needs to go to really capture that support that it needs. We got a couple of people saying that the bull market is over. Obviously not. I don't think that's the case at all. We've done almost nothing. So I can't be concerned about this. Let's look at Solana. Solana is pretty interesting. It dropped fairly hard. From its high, it's down by about 18%. And just to put this in perspective with Bitcoin, Bitcoin from its all-time high over here, the high that it's set so far in this market cycle, it's down by about 7.6%. So you're getting hit, quite a bit harder if you're in altcoins, including even majors like Solana. But yeah, that doesn't have to be, super concerning. I wouldn't want to, read into it too much, but it is something worth observing. The problem with Solana is, when it's kind of on an aggressive downtrend, which it's in right now, its wicks are kind of crazy, which again makes it hard to trade. And it's in the same kind of like mushy, blurry kind of support zone that Bitcoin is in, or that Bitcoin might see, because like, where do you identify support on this chart, right? Like, you could probably take a rectangle and draw something a little bit like this, basically anywhere from like 157 to 166, where we are right now. Definitely makes sense for Solana to kind of bounce off this kind of zone here. But again, I mean, that's not going to happen without the blessing of Bitcoin, which of course is going to move only with the blessing of the S&P 500. So we're just going to have to kind of wait and see how that ends up playing out in this market. Yeah, drop your questions right here in the live chat. I see a couple of questions here. We've got Jonah saying, do you not think Trump sending 𝗎𝗓𝗔𝗟 might be the reason for the drop? Yeah, it could be. I don't know what that news is. I haven't actually seen that news. Let me see if I can pull up Twitter real quick right here, and maybe we can see something interesting. Let Let's just scroll through this just for a second. Yeah, it looks like Polymarket is starting to bet on so the chance of a 25 basis points decrease is now at 70%. So it looks like, yeah, there's a lot of people kind of speculating on a change in interest rates relatively soon. So, obviously I believe that's quite bullish, but there is a lot of data to suggest that actually if you're going through a period of kind of rate changes, that it can send the market down. There's a lot of evidence for that, which is contrary to what you would think. But let me just see if I can pull that out for you. It's already dropped. Am I looking at the wrong thing here? I don't know if I'm looking at the right thing or not, but we have seen across history. This is way too far back. What am I looking at? We're on the 1 day, but it's going back many years. So that's not useful. Was this a bearish period? I'm not sure. We'd have to. I feel like I'm not on the right chart. I don't know. I'm not gonna continue embarrassing myself on this one here. We'll just stick to what I do know. Chris says, let it drop to 111.5. Grab the bulk of liquidity just below us. Bulls can get back on the same page and move forward. I agree. Yeah, that's what the market really does want to do a lot of the time is capture a little bit of liquidity and then continue. By the way, see, this is really bad. See, like we managed to produce a really good bounce here, and we've done nothing with it. And if you do this enough times, you end up crashing. So that's not great. Has Bitcoin topped? I'm assuming you mean market cycle top, meaning that 124K all-time high was the actual all-time high, and we're not going to get higher than that. I believe the answer to that, at least from me, is going to be an unequivocal big fat no. I do not believe that the market has topped at all. I think we're going to get significantly higher than that, actually. And I don't even think it's the right time to be asking questions like that. You know what I mean? Like I think the market hasn't given us any real reason to be concerned. And again, especially when I just keep on saying the same thing because it's just always true. It's the S&P that's causing this, and the S&P is in a really kind of healthy posture right now. So I don't think that that's going to change. I would love to see the S&P kind of dropping back down to that previous all-time high just so we can kind of get this over with. And of course, every time we do pull off, kind of reversals like this, that's what allows us to, typically carry on rallying quite nicely. So maybe we see something a little bit like that. You know what I mean? Like that would be a pretty reasonable kind of outcome here. As for, grabbing that liquidity, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. But again, I just feel like, it's not a Bitcoin liquidity question. That's a tiny part of the equation. For me, the way I see it, Bitcoin, longs kind of getting liquidated and stuff like that, that's going to be, the equivalent of a mouse. And the S&P impact on Bitcoin will be the equivalent of a bear, in terms of like size of significance on the market. Really weird analogies. I'm talking about mice and bears today, ladies and gents, but that's what it is. Steven says, not really news. Trump announced a long time ago tariffs on countries which did not create an agreement. Only a trigger for S&P 500. Yeah, so I saw that today, like some renewed tariff talks. I don't know if that's still dumping the markets. That's obviously a little bit old by now, but I mean, it could be. Clearly, it hasn't had a big impact. I said this to you guys. Look at this. We're dropping right here. Like I said, this is the lose your money feed right here on the right hand side of the screen. Yeah, I don't really think that that tariffs should be a concerning thing anymore, but yeah, it's clearly scaring people. I think like as we were dropping here, I was super vocal for the S&P, saying like obviously tariffs are not gonna crash the market like everybody wants them to do. It's very sensationalized thinking and not at all realistic. Is this a bear market? I don't think so. I don't think this is a bear market. You know, bear markets sometimes need definitions like dropping below moving averages or dropping by a minimum X% drop. Bitcoin's down 7% from its all-time high. All right, we gotta calm down with this sentiment about, you know, are we in a bear market? Obviously not. I think I could be wrong, but yeah, no, obviously not. S&P has been cooking pretty heavily overbought in a sense. Shouldn't we be worried? I mean, I'm not worried, but I did say over the last videos that, you know, yeah, you know, the S&P is due for a pullback, and that's exactly what's happening here. So worried? No. I mean, it's just like, why would you be worried? You're too emotionally attached to the market. You shouldn't ever be worried. But yeah, I think, you know, like, pullbacks are just part of the game. And honestly, ladies and gents, like, if a drop, be it on Bitcoin or the S&P, you know, kind of like messes up your state of mind a little bit, I think you're reading the markets wrong, man. You know, like, drops are just part of what happens. It's just part of what makes a chart. Okay, you need some red days in order to have the green days. I think that stuff is overwhelmingly clear, to be honest. What have we got here? Shakeout for retail. Absolutely, yeah. I think that's all this is. I think this is a shakeout for retail. Just like every other drop always is. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not seeing anything outside of standard procedure right here. So I'm pretty happy with what I'm seeing. Jay says this isn't a dump. It's just a small little percentage, and absolutely, I completely agree. Fathom says that we're going from 112 to 130, which would be very, very cool. I disagree. I don't think it's going to be that easy, but you know, we definitely could do. Bitcoin is slipping though. Bitcoin is slipping, and if we look at that channel right here, we are on the bleeding edge. Oh no, we're not. We're very close to it though. We're very, very close to it though. So, and it depends on how you draw it. Obviously, I drew it. We don't want to be too. We don't need to worry about being too precise about these things, because, you know, the market doesn't really, you know, respond as precisely anyway. But testing the weak hands, yeah, that's all I think it is. Yeah, 100%. I think that's all it is. Smash up the likes, ladies and gents, as you are coming in here. If you're finding this live stream useful and engaging, we are live right here as the market is potentially dropping down below a pretty important level. So we'll continue to watch this as it develops right here in the market. 113K is the first major liquidation. Expect calm off within that range. So 113.3, that's basically like right here. So we'll see if that's, you know, where things kind of speed up, maybe heading down towards there, or overshooting that level. I don't know. I don't want to get, again, too precise about that stuff either, because these are such small, you know, kind of ranges, right? I mean, if we put this stuff in perspective, you know, to get from, you know, 113,300 to where we are now is a minor 0.3% move. I mean, that's obviously just fluctuation territory. So I don't want to, you know, get too granular with my analysis that way. You know, you might get tunnel vision in your analysis, but, you know, the market doesn't. The market doesn't get tunnel vision like that. So not until, you know, very late stages anyway. So and I don't think we're there. If it's not a bear market, then it must be a bull market, which also means that we're dipping. Does that mean buy the dip? Good question, sir. Or madam, Devine. I don't know. But yeah, no, I think that's it. I think it's a buy the dip situation. I just think that, you know, like, well, where do you buy the dip? I don't think that that's clear, because there's so many, you know, reasonable levels to see Bitcoin dropping down to, as we've kind of covered already a little bit earlier on. So to me, you know, it's just not, like, it's not a dip that I think is particularly easy to buy unless you're going, you know, spot, for example. Robert says it's an opportunity to buy more. No disappointment here. Absolutely. And I think, like I said, you know, anywhere down to all the way down to like 98K is very much in play. I know that this is a price level that people are kind of shocked about, you know, that we could slip below 100, but again, the market doesn't care if you're worried that we're going to slip below 100. It's just going to do what it needs to do, and it's not bearish either. It's just a retest. It's just the market pulling back after setting an all-time high. The bad thing is, obviously we're potentially losing this continuation pattern, which does mean that, we might not move up as quickly as we wanted to. But I mean, if that's what's going to worry you, then, you wouldn't have survived this entire market cycle. You know what I mean? Which has had, it's had some decent drops. It's had some decent it's had a lot of price ranges that essentially just grind you down and make you feel terrible. Here's Bitcoin slipping below right now, setting a brand new low again. So definitely look at that. We're just on the edge. We're just on the edge. And GK says it's a bad idea to long anything at the moment. I agree, dude. I agree. I don't think this is a time to be taking any trades right now. I think the time for trades could be very, very soon, and I think the trades will be a lot better. Look at that. There we go. There we go. It's fallen off the screen, ladies and gents. 113,300. There we go. That's the drop right there. And yeah, it does look like the dump did intensify, so that could definitely be liquidations. Now, for those of you who don't know what this looks like, I'm gonna keep this chart on the right so you can keep on watching yourself lose money. But if you don't really understand how this works, essentially, let's say that this is let's say that this is 114k support, and let's say that this is 110. Typically what will happen is the market will kind of like do its thing, fall down, but this point is where let's say liquidations start coming in. When you're in a long and you get forced liquidations, essentially what that does is it forces you to close your position. And if you're long, that means that you bought Bitcoin. So the only way to close that position of buying is to sell. And when you sell, you end up pushing the market lower. So that's probably what happened right here, considering how quickly it happened. And obviously, because you're forced to sell and that forces the market down, that's going to force more people to, people are going to get scared. And if people start getting scared, it's going to dump even further, and that will trigger even more liquidations. And like I said, liquidation means that, you got an active position on Bitcoin. The only way you can close it is by selling it. And again, like I said, selling pushes the market lower. So definitely, it explains why and how these things can go quickly. If you didn't already know that, definitely smash up the likes and subscribe. If you didn't know that, and you're this deep into the crypto market, it probably means you haven't learned stuff properly, which is not a good place to be, right? Because this is, a really, really hot point in the market, and we really need to make sure that we know the important stuff we need to know, right? So that we're not caught off guard. So I think really, really important to keep this stuff in mind. If you haven't quite learned this stuff properly, then, now's your time to probably pick up some books and stuff like that. Obviously, we've got a super powerful exclusive program right here at last 12 weeks. And we've seen incredible results. Every single person that's ever joined this program has paid off the fee, the investment to join pretty quickly, usually, within the first month. And so that's been incredible results there. If you want to get yourself inside, it is expensive. It's a very serious program, but if that sounds like, something that you're open to, then reach out using this link down below. And a member of the team will get back to you. Like I said, phenomenal exchanges, well worth checking out, especially 𝗙𝗋𝒋 with the exclusive chart updates, which are going to be super hot right now with the market dropping. So check that out as well with the link in the description. 𝗙𝗋𝒋 is, the same platform that you're already used to. But one of the things that's really cool over here is you are going to, essentially get a deposit match. So whatever you deposit, they're going to give you more free cash that you can trade with, including, free long short position, which is really, really cool. As well. So check that out if you're not from a restricted region. Super cool stuff. And again, obviously disclaimer, very, very important. Let's come back to the live chat and see what's going on. Let's get this thing up to 150 likes, ladies and gents. We're picking up a little bit. There is Bitcoin slipping below 113,300, and we've now definitely, surely we've lost this range now, right? Yeah, we've lost this range now. So that's not great. That's not great. We faked out before. We could fake out now, but it doesn't look like that's happening here. So yeah, we'll continue to kind of watch this as it plays out. Yeah, it's dropping. It is dropping, and like on the minute time frame here, like it's a pretty relentless drop as well. You know what I mean? Like it's just dropping and dropping and dropping. It's not really catching a break right now. So yeah, let's see how this continues to go right here. We'll just park that up over there on the side. Let's see what else we got here. in the live chat, alt season will happen, but it's delayed. Yeah, of course, I completely agree. It's dropping too hard. We will get daily retracement soon. It's not dropping too hard. I think that's I don't agree with that at all. It's not dropping too hard. What there's no such thing as too hard, you know what I mean? Like Bitcoin drops pretty aggressively and then it recovers like normal, you know. This is just Bitcoin. You know, we need to maintain perspective of what these charts actually do. What's up, Robert from Thailand, 𝐋𝐄𝐕𝐄𝐗 Madhouse? Welcome to the live stream. We got Raymond from Australia. How you guys doing? Shout out to my friends living upside down in Australia. I love Australia. It might be one of the best countries in the world. Definitely might be one of the best in the world. We got 113,200 right here. Absolutely fantastic. Continuing to drop down. At this point, we just want this thing to finish. You know what I mean? Like, we want this dump to speed up. We want to see some of these support levels that we're looking for. Hopefully, you know, gather a bit of support and then continue up higher. I think that's kind of the outlook that I'm going for. We got Spain in the house. What's going on, Spain? Good time to invest in Bitcoin. That is your decision. That is your decision. I won't comment on that. It's 3:30 a.m. where you are. Where are you? Somewhere in Asia, presumably. What are your guys' prediction for Bitcoin in 2035? 2035? That's like 10 years away. I don't know, dude. It depends on the dollar. You know what I mean? Like, you know, there's this there's so many thoughts that people have about, you know, like where the market could go and how aggressively it could move. But I just don't think that, you know, many of these ideas are particularly grounded and realistic. I mean, you know, one of the tweets I saw here yesterday was, you know, Greg, who's basically like a fitness influencer, you know, mentioning a quote from 𝐒𝐀𝐿𝐴 that, you know, essentially you're getting a 40% year-over-year increase. And, you know, my response to this was right here. I basically said, look, you know, 40% year-over-year over a long period of time is ridiculously unrealistic. I mean, you know, do the math. It's not sustainable. Granted, yes, Bitcoin has been doing it for a long time, and that alone is also crazy. And we'll get to those ideas in just a moment here. But I mean, you know, 40%, you know, for a long time doesn't really make sense. And if you measure it against market cap, you know, I mean, we can do this real quick, you know, if you guys are curious, because I think it is definitely, you know, an interesting kind of thought experiment. If we just go ahead and, you know, we can take Bitcoin's all-time high of 124,000, multiply that by 1.4, and that gives us, you know, 173 as a target. But if you're saying that that's going to happen, you know, like every year for 5 years, you know, you're looking at $500,000+ Bitcoin, you know, within, you know, basically kind of like after Trump's term ends, which I can see it. Like, I understand why you would say that, but I mean, it's market cap. You know what I mean? Like, market cap doesn't really allow this. If we take this number and multiply this by, you know, let's say there's 20 million, 20 million. Oh, what is this? Yeah, it's not going to show me that number. What does this mean? Like $13 trillion market cap, presumably. What is it at right now? I mean, it's, what? No. Global ranking, surely. Okay, where's Bitcoin? I'm so confused. What? All assets by market cap. That's got to be it. Yeah, there we go. So, you know, I mean, it's $2.2 trillion right now. And let's say, because I'm so bad at math, I'm just going to have to use my calculator here. Let's say it's like a 5x gain. So a 5x gain would put Bitcoin at about $560,000. And that puts Bitcoin's market cap at, you know, $11 trillion. And, I mean, the biggest company in the world is Nvidia at 4.2. Gold itself is at 23 trillion. So that puts Bitcoin essentially, you know, at half of gold's current, you know, complete, you know, total valuation, which, you know, like, you might think that that's realistic. And if that's you, rock on. You know, I mean, I'm not here to say that that's unrealistic or not, because who knows, you know, like, Bitcoin is quite crazy. But ultimately, my point is here, you know, it's that it's completely unrealistic. unless we, I mean, I said it would require the dollar to implode. I mean, this stuff, like, by the way, let's come back to gold here. I mean, gold is obviously a pretty, consistent, predictable tracking of inflation, right? So if there's a lot of money printing, gold will go up, and it's a pretty clear, inverse correlation there. It's something that we've known about for an incredibly long period of time. And so with that in mind, I think for sure, like it's just not super realistic that, you're going to get massive valuations unless you're also saying that the dollar is going to, just die, basically. And, and I'm not in the business of saying that's going to happen. I know that a lot of people have these, fantasies of the dollar dying, but you're not really thinking those statements through, like if the dollar does drop down massively, I mean, America will be poor. America's already, a lot of America's poor, but it'll get really bad, like there's going to be crime everywhere and riots and nothing's going to be safe. You know what I mean? Like society will collapse. And that's what I said, like it's a completely unrealistic, kind of idea unless you also want to cheer on society falling apart completely. Now he's saying it's going to slow down to 20% over time, which is, quite different to the original tweet, but whatever, Greg. Yeah, I agree with you. 20%, makes a lot more sense than, 40. And 20% is also closer to the real inflation numbers. So, with that in mind, it also makes sense that, we end up seeing, something a little bit more kind of consistent as far as year over year averaged out growth. But at the end of the day, we are still essentially cheering on the dollar dying if that happens. And that's not what I'm in the business of doing. First of all, I don't want to see that happen. None of us want to see that happen realistically, especially if you know what it means. You won't want that to happen. And if it does, I mean, shit, yeah, sure, your Bitcoin will be worth a lot, but your dollars won't, so it's not the fantasy that, I think many people want it to be. And it's the equivalent of, any country that's seen hyperinflation where, like, yeah, everything gets a lot more expensive, but it's only because the currency doesn't buy you anything anymore. And that's what's been happening with gold. So, a 5x on Bitcoin here, putting Bitcoin's market cap at 11 trillion, half of gold, is potentially realistic. That's secondary. The main point is that it would require a lot of inflation. Now, look, as far as inflation being a possibility, we are expecting rate cuts, right? So if there are rate cuts, that's going to lead to, obviously, more money entering the markets. And David says, I am not a student of history if I think the dollar is safe. I didn't say that. What I said is that I don't think the dollar is going to implode. Those are two very different statements. You see, the problem is, the reality is that the dollar has indeed been losing purchasing power for, the last 100 years or more, whatever. We know this as a fact. I don't think anybody here struggles with that. What I'm saying is I don't think it's going to speed up to the point where you're going to see, a Venezuela or a Turkey or a Lebanon type situation happening to the United States. Yeah. And if you are saying that, it's actually quite like, it's like almost like a psychopathic like take, you know what I mean? Like, I just don't think it's realistic. And I think that's really, really important. Am I like 500 pounds? I'm nowhere near 500 pounds, but I did get a little bit fatter. We're working on that, boys. We're working on that. But that's my point. It's not that the dollar is safe. It's that I don't think it's gonna, like fall off a cliff. Which is what a lot of crypto maxis want to see. They want to see the dollar falling off a cliff and dying. And I just, like I said, I don't think that that's going to be super realistic in this market here. So I was making another point. I forgot. Oh yeah, the inflation thing, right? So obviously when interest rates come down, that's obviously where you see, inflation kind of, picking up. And so that would pave the way for our coins to go up quite a bit. And obviously that's why Trump wants those interest rates to come down. So yeah, we'll just have to see how that continues to go as this market progresses here. Ladies and gents, if you are enjoying this live stream, we're 1 like away from 150. Smash them up if you haven't done so already. I really do appreciate it all. Let's see what questions we got here in the live chat. If you got any other questions, things you want me to look at, charts and so on, drop them in the live chat while we continue to watch Bitcoin. In this case, now making a recovery, which is absolutely beautiful. Very, very nice to see. A little bit of a recovery here. We spoke about shorts. Obviously a steep recovery could be an indication that short positions could be, worth considering. I don't really love those ideas, but I think for sure some people are probably going to be interested in that. Let's look at the S&P again on a small time frame, and it's just going sideways here. So nothing, particularly worth noting on the S&P here. But yeah, we'll continue to kind of watch Bitcoin and see how these moves play out. Let's see what we got here in the live chat. Yo, brother, hope you've been well. Good to see you. Thank you very much, sir. Yeah, I've been good, mate. I've been good. Thank you. As long as it beats the S&P 500, I'm fine with it. Yeah, of course. I think, Bitcoin will keep beating the S&P. But, S&P 500 is not, hard to outperform, is it? So... yeah, that would be nice. Jay says, I see more of the value in Bitcoin being debanking. I'm not anti-USA. I don't want the dollar to fall. Exactly. You know what I mean? Like, debanking makes sense, taking the power out of the hands of the banks. And that's already happened because banks have had to kind of accept Bitcoin and cooperate with them globally. Like if you go back like 5-10 years ago and you held crypto and you wanted to, take that money into a bank account, they would ask you a million questions and they'd act like you killed their fucking mother or something. If you dare say the word crypto or Bitcoin, you know what I mean? And that perspective has completely changed now. It's flipped on its head, and actually, banks they kind of want crypto business now because everybody, in my age bracket, I'm 24. Everybody, up to age 40 really holds some bit. I don't know. Can't say everybody, but a lot of people do. So obviously they'd be left behind, right? So in that sense, banks have kind of had to play catch up a little bit. But hey, let's be clear. I mean, the powers that be do now control Bitcoin anyway. So and this is evidenced quite clearly by the fact that Bitcoin is essentially pegged to the S&P 500, especially to some extent. Maybe not completely, but to some extent, it's pegged to the dollar. And, that's going to be, a pretty clear indication that, to the S&P 500, that's going to be a pretty clear indication, obviously, that the same money that has always kind of controlled traditional finance is now also the same money that controls Bitcoin. So it's not black and white. It's not black and white. It's the powers are merging, and that's what typically happens when there is an emergent power that kind of threatens the status quo. I don't know if it's the status quo. I don't know how you say that, but when there's an emergent power that kind of threatens, the establishment, typically, both parties kind of absorb each other. And a middle ground is typically found, or they just shut it down completely, like the UK trying to shut down VPNs now. Sometimes it's a little bit too threatening. So governments take bigger action than that, you know what I mean? Or groups of people take bigger actions than that. For example, when beautiful Liz Truss, I can't say she's beautiful, but she's beautiful by her heart. When she came in and started to fix the UK, essentially doing stuff a little bit like Trump, the powers in the UK, the central bank and all that, started to collapse the markets, and things got really bad. Interest rates for mortgages and whatever ended up getting blamed on Liz Truss because the UK population is completely financially illiterate, similar to the rest of the world, of course, but like that's an example of where the power is in place, just kind of they rejected those ideas and they took that prime minister out of power because of course the prime minister seat in the UK is not the head of state, it's just a puppet position. Maybe it's the same for the rest of the world. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't continue saying this stuff. I don't know how much of this shit I can say on YouTube, but it's true anyway, and I guess we're embracing free speech a little bit more these days, aren't we? So hopefully it's not too much of an issue. But yeah, Bitcoin's just kind of holding on right now. It's trying to produce some pumps. It's not really working, unfortunately. So we'll have to see how this continues to play out in this market here. Edward's saying it's dropping with low volume. This is a buying gift. It definitely could be. I don't read into volume too much these days, but yeah, I know that a lot of people do definitely like reading into it. 83 million were liquidated. Yeah, so that could be an indication that we're ready to go up, but I don't know if that's enough. 83 million, is that enough? it might not be. Ken says it's getting ugly. I think yeah, I think I would probably agree with that, at least for the super short term. I don't obviously think there's any particular, reason to be concerned overall, but yeah, super short term it could indicate a little bit more downside here. Get back to Bitcoin and charts. Yeah, that's exactly what we're on, mate. Yeah. Honestly, not a whole lot I can say on Bitcoin though. I've already outlined all of it. I've even showed you guys where I think support could be. Yeah, I do think, there's going to be a bit of a kind of rebuilding process for Bitcoin if it, conclusively drops below this 113K level, because that means, like I said, it's dropped below its consolidation zone, its continuation pattern, and that probably indicates, that it's going to have to build back up, perhaps somewhat slowly. So we'll have to kind of continue to watch this and see how it plays out. But, yeah, really, really good stuff here. Overall, nothing that I'm particularly concerned about at all, to be honest. What else have we got here in the live chat? Yeah, drop your questions as we are continuing to go on here. Smash up those likes, of course, if you haven't done so already. Subscribe if you're new to the channel. Are you guys new? Like, I want to know, are we reaching like new audiences with the stream, or is it people that have already been on this channel? Let me know. How long have you been watching for? When did you find this channel? Let me know in the live chat. I'd be curious about that. Let's take a look through some of the altcoins. I'm getting a couple of altcoin suggestions now. I've already looked at Solana. We've looked at XRP. Honestly, there aren't any other coins that I'm finding particularly interesting right now. So, yeah, I got a request for Sui. We'll take a look at that real quick. Pardon me. We'll see if there's anything interesting happening here. I don't really look at Ethereum against the dollar because... Ethereum against the dollar is it's again, it's a secondary chart. The primary chart to watch is going to be Ethereum Bitcoin, and Ethereum Bitcoin we've already covered a little bit earlier on. You can rewind. We'll get to that again in a little bit in this live stream if you want me to repeat it. But Jonathan, hey, what's up? Been here for a couple of years. Nice one. Very, very cool. I was watching your videos since 2020. Amazing. 2020 was nice. 2020 was really good. K-Boys, 𝗙𝗟𝗟𝗟𝗓, first time. AA new. Welcome to the live stream. Welcome to the channel, guys. Yeah, we're all about grounded, realistic TA here. We keep it legit. You're all right, Ghost. We keep it legit. We keep it very grounded and realistic. I've been doing this for over 8 years now. So nothing really surprises me anymore, and I think that makes things pretty easy to analyze, right? Those of you that have been watching this channel throughout this market cycle will know that I don't think we got anything wrong. Honestly, I don't think so. Maybe obviously a couple of things, but all the big things were 100% right on this channel. So really, really cool. Shout out to 𝗙𝗢𝗟𝗟𝗓, just subscribed 10 minutes ago. You legend. Thank you for that. And thanks to all of you that have been around for a while. Absolutely love it. This is my first live, but been watching for a few weeks. Yeah, welcome to the live stream. I prefer live streams. Live streams are a lot better. But obviously, we need some market movements to make that make sense. But here's Bitcoin getting ready to sweep its low again. And just while we watch that feed on the right side, here is Sui here. And, it looks a little bit like Solana, to be honest. It's kind of dropped below its kind of useful support level here. And yeah, it's probably got a few support levels here, obviously, but I don't really think that any of these are particularly interesting, so I'm not going to spend too much more time looking at it. It's just, I don't think it's worth analyzing altcoins. A lot of people love watching them, but not at times like now. Maybe if there's like an opportunity, but again, you're not going to see opportunities until Bitcoin stabilizes, which it clearly hasn't stabilized yet. So it probably does need a little bit more time, for altcoins to get interesting. And that's why, me personally, I like to watch the Bitcoin dominance chart, because that's going to give me a better indication. And, this is starting to paint, a bit of a, ascending triangle here. So I think this is going to be something to kind of watch out for, because, if we are painting an ascending triangle and, let's say we do something a little bit like this, that's probably indicating a pretty, steep rise up for Bitcoin. If it manages to get out of this. So that's something we got to watch out for. Hyperliquid, I'll take a look at it. I don't like analyzing it too much because it's such a manipulated chart. But yeah, it is probably one of the coins that are a little bit more independent of Bitcoin, so it is worth looking at. It's dropped pretty steep. It's got a pretty steep drop right here. What is this? 25%. And really good level right here. Yeah, really good level right here. I mean, I can't say really good, but it's definitely a good level. Yeah, definitely a good level, I think, for hype right now. Kurt's Project says, first time today, welcome, mate. Should we look at shorting? That's up to you. I can't give you financial advice. You already know the deal. You guys have seen the disclaimer. Do your own research. Don't be an idiot. I like to keep it that way. Yeah, look, we've already discussed shorts. I think that, you know, people who like taking shorts are probably going to be interested in taking shorts. If Bitcoin can rise up a little bit, I think shorting right now is just silly. It's actually a support level, you know, so I don't like going short at the bottom. And to be honest, you know, typically you only want to go short at resistance. You know, you don't want to go short when you're still, you know, like far away from resistance, because that means you have more space you can rise up, you know, and I think that can be pretty dangerous. So Crypto Fart has been here since birth. Very, very cool. Barnett Family Vid's been here since before you moved to Dubai. Yeah, you are definitely OG, mate. Welcome. Yeah, not welcome. Welcome back. 13 Scorpio, been watching since the bear market of 2018. I think changed my life. You legend, mate. 2018 bear market. That's when this channel really shifted to crypto. So you were here since right at the beginning. That was an interesting time for sure. Alts is not moving down, only Bitcoin. Yeah, so alts are doing a little bit better right now compared to Bitcoin. Not hype, obviously, but some of the others. But it's very like intraday price action stuff. It's not anything that I would draw conclusions off right now. But hype right here, yeah, this is definitely a long, I think, for people that are aggressive traders. I don't like it. I think it's super unsafe, but there is at least, you know, a decent stop loss to be identified here and pretty good upside, right? I mean, back to that all-time high is a 6x risk to reward, so that's pretty good. But I think what's really interesting is going to be throwing some fibs on this chart. So let's go ahead and do that. And I'm going to throw a couple of fibs on here. I want to see what they look like. I'm going to start with this right here, and we've already lost the 618 retracement, but we're still in that pocket. So you know, that could be in play. I think the real Fibonacci is probably going to be from this low, and that indicates some potential support down at about $35, which makes sense because that was the original all-time high for hype. Put it this way, if Bitcoin falls down to, you know, 107, 109, 112, which I think a lot of you guys were kind of looking for in this live stream, you know, that would probably put hype down at some of these better, you know, Fibonacci levels here on the longer time horizon. I would love to see a reset down to here because this would scare people. It would be a really healthy reset. Essentially what happens when stuff like this happens, obviously, is retail impatient hands end up selling their coins. They sell it to people that are more patient, and of course, you know, the result of having patient holders is that they don't sell. Okay, so if they don't sell, then essentially our supply gets constricted. There's less supply in the market, and less supply means there's less coins to buy. Less coins to buy means less selling side liquidity, and less selling side liquidity means it's easier to push the market up. That was probably a little bit complex. So if you want me to repeat that or rephrase that, let me know. Let me know if you understood what I just said. It was actually really, really important to understand. So if that wasn't super clear, I'll definitely make that a little bit clearer for you guys. Jay started watching since today. I only watched during chaos. Probably the worst time to be watching the markets in my opinion, but you do you. Do I think we're in the depression phase for alts? I don't know. I think the market's been in a depression phase for like 2 years, maybe 3. So, you know, I kind of see it that way. Raymond says just sit on your hand in DCA. I mean, I can tell Raymond makes money. You know what I mean? Keeping it simple, keeping it very, very simple. Yeah, no, I don't think that we're. Yeah, I don't think we're in a bad place though at all. Definitely, you know, like depression, stuff like that. I don't know, man. I like I said, I think this market's been pretty depressed for a long time. I don't think that we're just entering depression now, which is a good thing, right? Like that means that you can come out of depression. You know what I mean? Like when you enter depression, it's in the name. It's subject to last a very, very long time, but it has lasted a very long time. You know, so And by the way, a lot of these coins that have hit all-time highs, they haven't hit all-time highs adjusted for inflation, which is a really big deal. Like if you think you're doing well, and your coin adjusted for inflation is actually lower than where it could or should be, then that's pretty bad. And that's the deal with XRP, right? Like XRP is in that position because XRP managed to set an all-time high at $3.50 back in 2018, very, very beginning of 2018, literally like January 1st, huh? And then over here, it's hit the same all-time high more or less. And the inflation that happened between 2018 and 2025 isn't. That's where all the inflation happened. You know what I mean? Like that's where all the crazy shit happened. So actually adjusted for inflation, where would XRP be? Like, I don't know, like maybe like down here or something. You know what I mean? Like, is it reasonable to say that there's been like 30-40% inflation since 2018? Yeah, I think so. The data lies to you, CPI data, whatever. It's not real. Real inflation is the stuff like eggs, right? Or fuel prices or whatever. It's been. Let's actually. I'm curious. I'm not saying this is the right way to look at it, but I just want to take a look at oil. Is it crude oil? I don't even know. I keep on forgetting. But 2018. Oh, it's at the same price. Yeah. So let's see WTI. We can't go back. Yeah, I don't know which chart I'm looking for, to be honest. But there's been a lot of inflation since 2018, right? So for XRP to just be at the same levels now, like put it this way, like if you held, many of you probably didn't, but if you held XRP from 2017, 2018 to now, you're not up, against the dollar. You're actually still down. But I don't think that's a bad thing. I think the chart for XRP is still very strong. I just want you to see these markets for what they are, in reality, rather than letting yourself get hyped up or reach other kind of dangerous places that are, perhaps not so sustainable. Sean says, don't let the government numbers gaslight you fellas. Absolutely agree. Completely agree. Sammy sounds very chilled out. Must be making some decent cash. Yeah, I think I'm doing all right. I'm getting by. I'm surviving. Yeah, definitely chill. I'm always chilled out. You guys know me. I keep it simple. You know what I mean? I'm not here to lose my mind. I made this point at the very beginning of the live stream, ladies and gents. Like a lot of people, they enter these markets looking for excitement. They enter these markets looking for a thrill, looking for almost like a roller coaster ride with their finances. I think that's pathetic. I think it's ridiculous. I think it's really, really bad. We're not in these markets for enjoyment. We're not. We're in these markets to make money. You want to enjoy yourself. You buy some nice stuff with your profits. But these markets are serious, man. They're serious. There's big players in these games, and they're taking your money. You're not gonna be able to compete with them and profit off it's a zero-sum game, right? Like if you win, somebody else has to lose. You're not gonna do well in these markets if Ethereum down hard. We'll take a look at that in just a second. Yeah, you're not going to do well in these markets if you're here for a thrill. You're here to make money or to give your money to someone else that's more serious than you. That's the bottom line. What do I always say? If I want fun, I'm going to go down to I'm going to go downstairs. I'm going to get in my Ferrari and actually have some fun. These markets are not fun. If you're having fun in these markets, you're fucking up 5-10 things first. You know what I mean? Like you're probably overinvested because if you're overinvested and you're making money, then yeah, you're gonna feel a little bit euphoric, but that stuff's not sustainable. So I got a couple of requests for charts. Let's look at Ethereum first. Ethereum against the dollar getting rejected off resistance. Like I said, I don't look at this against the dollar. I'm only interested in Ethereum against Bitcoin. And Ethereum against Bitcoin is dropping right now as we speak. As I said a little bit earlier on, I think that anything above basically 0.3 BTC per token is probably a pretty good place for Ethereum BTC to be. So that's something I'll kind of continue to watch out for. Anything above this, I think it's still good. And I don't think the dollar chart matters at all. It's largely going to move in line with Bitcoin. You can analyze the dollar chart all you like, but again, it's like analyzing, you know, a mouse when actually the bear is what moves the chart. You know, like in terms of like size comparison, it's just so insignificant in my opinion. It makes sense if you want to, you know, actually take a trade, but again, like what trade is important other than, you know, Ethereum, you know, Bitcoin into Ethereum and Ethereum back into Bitcoin? I don't think that any other trade is important anyway. So yeah, I think that's a big deal. I got a question to look at the Nvidia chart, and I'm very interested in that. So let's take a look at Nvidia, which is just done so crazy. It's done so crazy. This session is going to close in 4 minutes. Okay, so the S&P is also about to close, and yeah, it's a drop. It's probably leading us into a Monday bearish week. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. A lot of crazy shit can happen in crypto over the weekend trading session, so we'll see how this plays out here. We're going to see something potentially happen in the next couple of minutes because this is the end of the daytime trading session. So we'll see how this goes on. But Nvidia, yeah, I mean, what can I say about Nvidia? You know, I mean, all you can hope for at this point is a pullback to buy some more. And the pullback level for me looks like, you know, 130 down to, up to about 150. Very, very cool range here. Those of you that are on Bybit, you can actually trade stocks now through Bybit, which is really, really cool. I remember sitting in Ben's office, Ben Zhao, CEO. When was this? This was a few years ago now. And we were talking about, you know, how cool it'd be to kind of trade stocks with crypto, you know. So really, really nice now to see that Bybit has actually added that. You can also trade Forex and stuff like that on Bybit. So check that out with this link. If you sign up with this link, you're going to get a ton of free cash deposited into your account. That's going to come in after you start trading. And that's more free money that you can do anything you like with. So check that out again if you're not from a restricted region there. But yeah, Nvidia, you know, like I said, tradable on Bybit, which is really interesting. 130 to 150 looks like a buy zone. I wouldn't get too picky with it if it does end up dropping down. But again, I mean, it's these are not easy charts to analyze because they have a very you know, extreme kind of swing type behavior to them. You know what I mean? Like they swing in very extreme ways, and so that can make it quite dangerous. Is it a good thing to take longs now? My God, I don't know, dude. You gotta make your own decisions on that. I can't, dude. I can't answer that for you. You know, I mean, you just gotta weigh it up. Does it meet your criteria for going long ultimately? And if you don't have criteria for going long or short, then what the hell are you doing? What are you doing if you don't even have, you know, a rule set that kind of tells you to go long or short? Are you just like freestyling every trade? Well, good luck to you if that's the case. You know, I don't think that freestyling trades is typically a smart idea. Let's check out Uniswap super quick, see if there's anything interesting over there. We're probably going to be wrapping up this stream relatively soon, though. If you have enjoyed this one, do me a favor and smash up those likes if you haven't done so already. Definitely subscribe to this channel if you're new. This is what you're going to get. You're going to get very realistic, calm analysis here. And we're going to be seeking to really kind of make sense of these markets from a very sober kind of perspective. Uniswap, what can I say? It fell below support. Probably looks like it needs to drop a fair bit lower now. Could drop down to the support level at about $6.70. I don't know. Like I said, I think all of these coins are subject to whatever happens to Bitcoin. It's a boring answer, but what do you want? You know, like I could bullshit you guys and analyze these. You know, like I could, you know, and a lot of people do. Like I could just sit on YouTube and just talk about each of these altcoin charts and say, you know, what I think is going to happen, but that analysis is wrong. It doesn't work. You know, and you've seen, if you've been consistent on this channel, you've seen this over time, because we make this point all the time that, you know, these markets only move with the blessing of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin, I mean, here on the right hand side of the screen is looking to potentially set a new low right here. Let's take a look. Let's see if Bitcoin does end up dropping, you know, and if it does, then your altcoins are going to, you know, probably largely drop for the most. I mean, look, like on a 1 minute time frame, you might see some discrepancies, but overall, it's clear, you know, money is leaving crypto. Money is leaving the stock market. So of course it's leaving crypto. You know, the stock market is safe. Crypto isn't, you know, so if money is being pulled out of the safe investment, what makes you think it's going to stay in the risky investment? You know what I mean? It's not how it works. Yeah, I think we're pretty much wrapping up here. I'll stick around to see if Bitcoin does drop a little bit. Let's get this live stream up to 200 likes though. We're very very close. We're very very close. Let's get this thing up to 200 likes. Right here and see what happens with Bitcoin. It's trying. Bitcoin is trying to get that drop right here. So we'll see how that continues to kind of play out. Smart dude you are. Thank you very much. Thank you very very much. Yeah, we've looked at Solana a little bit already. It's in the same position. There's nothing particularly interesting happening on Solana right now. It's basically at support right now. That's all really that's worth saying about it. But I mean, like, is support gonna hold if Bitcoin is dropping? That's a different question. It's got a very very tiny bounce off that level that I told you could support Solana. But I mean, again, if Bitcoin's dropping, you're not really gonna get much relief on Solana. That's just my take there. Yeah, and it looks like, I mean, by the way, bear in mind, like, as far as kind of horizontal levels go, we've never traded in this price range, right? The only trading Bitcoin ever did in this price range was literally for one day, and it was a really quick move up, and I think that's why we're seeing a really quick move down, because if you move up really quickly like this, you're not establishing support or realistically resistance, right? Like, you can see that we got rejected a couple times at the bottom of this level here, which sits at about 110, and so that's why 110 is a reasonable level to expect some support. But we didn't build any of that over here, which means that it's essentially an empty vacuum that we're falling in right now, and that's why we're probably seeing such a steep drop happening so quickly here. So close to 200 likes, ladies and gents. Smash them up. Smash them up. Thanks for your level-headed approach to what's happening. You're very welcome, sir. You're very, very welcome. But a bounce from that last high would be nice. Which high do you mean? Like this one right here? I'm not sure. Let me know which high you mean. I'm almost fully in Ethereum again. I mean, Ethereum is probably a really nice hold for this bull market. It's probably a lot better to hold than Bitcoin at this stage. Just given that Ethereum has woken up now, like Ethereum can double against Bitcoin, on the ETH BTC chart, and that would be pretty good. That'd be really, really good. The one on the left, yeah, you wanna see it retesting this high. Yeah, that puts us at about 112. So I know a lot of people are looking for 112. I think that's too shallow. I don't think we're gonna stop at 112. I think, and especially because I'm hearing so many people talk about 112. I think what you might end up seeing is a lot of people go long over here, and then their stop losses are like 107. So we sweep those stop losses too. That's what I think. Realistically could end up happening at 112. I actually think if anything we'll probably speed up at 112, but who knows, man. I could be wrong about that. I don't have complete confidence in that statement I just said, but I don't really think that it's the like savior support level that I think people in this live chat want it to be today. Even 111.5, it's the same thing. It's a 500. Like, it's not even half a percentage away from 112. It's the same level. Global M2 chart shows a harsh drop for September time. Do you think that's relevant? So M2 is going to be the money supply, and that indicates that the market's going to drop. That makes sense if interest rates are going to drop. Interest rates dropping do typically tend to kind of send the markets down a little bit. It would be. I want it to happen. I want to see a pullback. I want to see a nice big deep pullback. It'll be really nice to get entries on altcoins, and that will probably really really help this market. Just continue to kind of skyrocket from there. Ultimately, we only move up after pullbacks. So, the deeper the pullback, the better typically, which we've seen throughout this whole market cycle. We've had big pullbacks. We've had, long drawn out continuation patterns, and all of these different, variations of corrections for the market do end up typically being, quite a positive thing for the market. So yeah, I think that's a good thing. Remco says, I agree. I think 110 is likely, but 107, there's a lot of previous trades, so more likely, but still 112 would be nice. Yeah. It's like I said, it's a very mushy, like blurry support zone, and I don't think that makes it, particularly easy to kind of draw conclusions, and that's why I don't really like that price range for trades. M2 shows some serious shaking expected 2 months from now, but showing continuation upward from now. Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks for the stream from Florida. You're very, very welcome. Shout out to Florida, Crocodile State. I got chased by a crocodile once in Florida. I'm never going back. I might go back. I'm never going back to the Everglades though. Fuck that. That was really scary. That was really, really scary. I was bullish 2 days ago. Yeah, you're right, but we lost the range. You know, we were sideways too below. I mean, what do you want me to say, bro? We were still in a consolidation, pattern 2 days ago, and consolidation patterns in an uptrend are good. So now it's invalidated, and most importantly, I was saying that if the S&P drops, everything's probably gonna drop. So, it's what do you want me to say, bro? Like, I'm not going to be bearish if the S&P is dropping, and that is a drop that we were probably looking for anyway on this channel. So can I ask my accent? I'm from Blackpool myself. Sorry about that. Yeah, I'm from London. Yeah, born and raised in London. Hi from Dayton, Ohio, USA, home of Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, where they keep space aliens and UFOs. That is very cool. That is very, very cool. Sun after rain is the same thing as green after red. I completely agree. Completely agree. And you guys notice this, right? Like, when it rains, after the rain, the sky is so clear. Everything's cleansed. Everything's beautiful again. Like, this is how life works. It applies in every context. And it applies here in crypto too, of course. There's no reason for panic. Only Americans do panic. I wouldn't make such a broad generalization. I don't think so. If anything, it's the other countries, the poorer countries, that panic a lot more in my experience. That's definitely what I've seen. What's my football team? I don't watch football, bro. I live in Melbourne, Australia. Much love, brother. Yeah, Melbourne's cool. I haven't been to Melbourne yet. I haven't even been to Sydney. My God, I've only been to the Gold Coast, believe it or not. Who goes to Australia just to see the Gold Coast? I don't know, but I did. I had a great time. That was one of the best trips I ever took in my life, going to Australia. I was so confused. I got off the plane. I was in Indonesia. I got off the plane and I landed in the UK, and everybody spoke a little bit weird, and I was upside down, and they made us like scrape our feet on like an antibacterial mat. And it was so funny because the border force officer, lovely lady, she asked me, what's my purpose for being here, and I was like, but I'm in my country, I'm in the UK, like I was very confused, but they were great. Australia's amazing. I need to visit Melbourne. I've heard Melbourne's like one of the better parts of Australia. So was that during COVID? No, it was. Well, I guess so. Yeah, it was late 2022. I mean, I guess Australia probably took. Yeah, Australia took COVID, way too seriously. By the way, Bitcoin has just swept another low. We've just dropped down to 113,100. Let's see how this continues to go. On the right hand side of the screen here. Yeah, Australia was sick. I loved it. I loved Australia. Manly is amazing, close to Sydney. Melbourne is amazing. Yeah, got to check them all out. Never been to Pakistan. I've never been to Pakistan. I've never been to India or Pakistan, even though my parents are there. Are from there, sorry. I haven't been there ever. And to be honest, I don't really want to go. I like being in the West. I consider myself very lucky to have been born. I could have been born in like some shitty city in India, you know what I mean? And like, man, no way. I'm sorry. I mean, like, I don't mean to be rude to my Indian brothers, but I'm glad I was lucky enough to be born in the West. XRP is dropping. Will it be a painful drop? I mean, probably. XRP has pretty painful drops, doesn't it? Let's see XRP. Oh yeah, it's just slipped below $3 here, so we'll see how that goes. I think the daily close is going to be interesting. Like it's going to be what happens on the daily close here. India is way better. I mean, I'm glad you're happy in India. Yeah, that's cool. The West is better indeed. Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, for all the complaints we have about the West, it's great. Tell about Ethereum. I've already covered Ethereum, bro. Rewind the stream. We've already covered Ethereum. You definitely won the birth lottery. Yeah, I think so. I think I think being born in London as opposed to anywhere else in the world is pretty cool. I'm quite happy with that spawn point, to be honest. London, middle of the world, really. You know, like GMT time zone started from there. You know what I mean? So yeah, but no, I think Australia is, you know, pretty slept on. It's hard, obviously, because Australia is in, you know, a really weird part of the planet. You're not near anybody, but yeah, no, I call it my spawn point. London's where I spawned. Rotterdam, of course. I mean, you know, if you're born in the Netherlands, I mean, that's probably a lot better than being born in the UK. Being Dutch is cool. I think I feel a little bit of FOMO when I go to the Netherlands. That's a pretty perfect country. That's one of the closest countries to perfect that I've ever seen. Congress made believe they went on vacation. They didn't. This is a shakeout. A huge move is next. I don't know much about what you're saying, but I do think, obviously, you know, we're going to see some big moves soon. Do I think Ethereum will rise again or constantly drop? It's probably going to do a bit of both. You know, I mean, it's going to go up and down. What do you want me to say, man? Yeah, it's if Bitcoin is dropping, Ethereum's probably going to drop, and then when Bitcoin recovers, Ethereum's probably going to recover. That's what I think. What about Latvia? I've never been to Latvia. I've never been to that side of Europe, other than Greece, but that's not north. Valley Springs, California. Where's that? Haven't heard of that. Dutch, am I serious? Yeah, I'm serious, man. Have you been to the Netherlands? Not really. I'm from the Netherlands, but love the UK. I don't know. It's cool because the thing about the Netherlands is you're right next to Germany, so you have the Autobahn, and you know you gotta, you know, you got good people out there in the Netherlands. I find Dutch people to be really cool. Islamabad is cool as fuck. Won't say Pak is better than West in any way at all, but Islamabad is definitely better than London. Whoa, bro. Why is Islamabad better? I don't, you know, I don't disagree that Islamabad's probably a very nice part of Pakistan. I would, if I go to Pakistan, I would go to the north. I want to see Kashmir, you know. I want to see the mountains. I want to see those areas. And I would do the same in India, you know. I would go to those parts, you know. I mean, the Himalayas, dude. What? I would go out there, you know what I mean? No stabbings? Okay, yeah, sure, but I don't know. If crime is how you're measuring, you know, where you should be, then I don't know. Like, you got Dubai down the road, you know what I mean? Just go Dubai. Checking in from LA. What's up, LA? Yeah, I don't know. I like the Netherlands. I mean, I like Germany. You know, Germany's cool. I can't live in Germany, but you know, Germany is really, really cool. Autobahn indeed, but not many places anymore where you can drive unlimited fast. Yeah, I mean, you know, you probably have to drive early in the morning, stuff like that. You know, you can't really do it, you know, at like 3 p.m. You know what I mean? Like it's very misleading, you know, like people like me, we go to Germany, we're like, yeah, we're going to tear it up. We're doing 200 miles, you know, on the Autobahn. What is that? Like 300 kilometers in Euro speak. And then you get there and it's like, okay, well, I'm only cruising at like 100 kilometers now because there's traffic. And, you know, when do I get to do the fun part? And the fun part, you know, comes for like 5 minutes, 2 minutes, and then it's gone again. But it's cool that you can at least do it. It's cool that you can at least do that. Doge is holding. That's cool. I don't know if it'll last. I wouldn't judge anything on such a small time frame right now. By the way, Bitcoin dominance has recovered from any of from where's my mouse? From its small losses just in the recent kind of hour or so, whatever. It has shot up right here as the price is dropping. So let's see. I was gonna wrap up this live stream, but yeah, we just smashed 200 likes. Thank you for that, ladies and gents. Smash them up if you haven't done so already. Nuremberg is nice for a visit. Where is Nuremberg? Isn't that where they did the health thing? Like, you can't like force medications on people. I don't know. I think that was relevant over the last few years. Not sure why. Can't really remember. But yeah, I would love to see Nuremberg. Yeah. What do I think about 15-minute time frame on X? I'm not gonna analyze the 15-minute, bro. If you're looking at the 15-minute, you are fucking cooked, bro. You are cooked. If you're interested in the 15-minute time frame, I'm sorry. That is just not it. That is just not it. Yeah, we don't do time frames like that, you know. Like I've got the 1 minute pulled up on Bitcoin here, and every time I pull it up, I you know, I make jokes about how it's so silly to look at it, you know. Like, this is just for entertainment, nothing more. The left chart, this is Bitcoin dominance. And I just want to see how it's kind of, pardon me, rising back up to some of the highs. What is going on with my mouse? My mouse is being weird right now. I want to see how this continues to move. No, Nuremberg is Germany. Nürburgring. The Nürburgring. Yeah, I could take my Ferrari. I mean, I could, but I don't want to die. You know, like, I don't know why everybody does that track so much. It looks so dangerous. You know, the verticality. No, I'm not doing it. I'm honestly not interested in the Nürburgring. My car friends kind of like make jokes about me for it, you know, like telling me how it's really fun to live on the edge and stuff like that. And okay, I understand, but I got a packy mom and she will slap the shit out of me if something were to go wrong on a track, you know what I mean? So I'm all right, you know. I'm not messing around with that. I would rather go to Spa in Belgium. I think Spa in Belgium would be a hell of a lot more interesting than the Nürburgring, or even you know, Silverstone. Other track, there are other tracks that you can take your cars on. I don't know if Silverstone's one of them, but there are tons. There are tons. I love doing track days. The reason I don't speed on public roads anymore is because of track days. It's it really helped me grow out of it. I'm not looking at any particular trade setups right now. I know that the team is, and you can get updates on that exclusively on LevX. So check that out if you're not from a restricted region. But me personally, I'm not feeling it yet. I'm not feeling it yet. Here's Bitcoin sliding below. Just getting ready to slide below right here. Let's continue to kind of watch this and see how it plays out. Bitcoin dominance is definitely recovering right now. So we'll keep an eye on that as well as we continue to go on. Could I shout out your boy Trisha and Gil? It's his 21st. What's up, man? Happy birthday, bro. That's really, really cool. 21st birthday. Love that. I'm trying to send a super chat right now. It's YouTube. It's not being compliant. Give me a second. Oh, that's cool, bro. No need. You can send your message here. If you want to do a super chat, feel free. But I'll answer your questions anyway if you're not paying. That's fine. Would it break 130? You mean Bitcoin? Yeah, I think Bitcoin can get above 130K. I don't really understand your question, but yeah, I mean, I can see why Ethereum's dumping. Dominance is going up. So, and Bitcoin is largely dropping. So yeah, it makes sense that Ethereum's going to see a little bit of pain right now. I think it just swept its recent low from maybe a week or so ago. Let's see, when was this low? Yeah, this was about a week ago. It's just swept that low here. But like I said, I don't think that any of this is particularly interesting compared to Bitcoin dominance, because you get the same picture from Bitcoin dominance, but it's much more like all-encompassing. So yeah, it's going to bounce. Of course, eventually it is going to bounce. Much love, brother. If you want to come to Oz again, I'd love to show you around. Dude, hit me up on Telegram. Reach out when I'm next in Australia. I don't know when I'll be there next. We'll see. Maybe toward the end of the year. In summer, maybe around then. That would be really nice. I love Australia, dude. I'm always looking for a reason to go back. Yeah, but I would want to take my dog, you know, and they're gonna be weird with my dog. My dog's amazing. I love my dog. He's right here behind me. God bless you, bruv. Good stream. Thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. Yeah, dude, I'd love to take you up on that. Yeah, just shoot me a message. Not Telegram, actually. Message me on Instagram or Twitter. And I'll definitely keep that in mind. I wanna go. I wanna get on with my finish off the day here, but Bitcoin's just keeping me here. We'll see what happens for another couple minutes, but I think I'm gonna have to wrap this up now, to be honest, because we've been live for 2 hours. Wow, it's been a while since I've done a 2-hour live stream. That's cool. What's a good buy right now? I don't know. Maybe like a book. Probably a book, I think is a pretty good buy. Much love, my guy. Yeah, you too, man. You too, dude. Thanks. Thank you. Yeah, if you really want to buy something, check out the description. There are some pretty good books down here that, you know, changed my life, especially this one, man. This book is different. If you think my videos are good, shit, you haven't seen anything. You got to read this book, Market Wizard. You got to read that book. Only reason not going long is because of tariff. Yeah, I don't really believe in the tariff hype, but whatever. I'm longing YFI here. Good luck with that. Good luck with that. YFI is a fun coin to trade. I don't really like trading it, but I know a lot of people enjoy it. Cardano or Algorand, which is good? I don't know. Whatever you like more. All of these coins are shit. Market Wizard, yeah, you like that. Yeah, it's a good book. It's a very, very good book. All right, that is a pump right there. Fantastic. So it's trying to hold its ground here. Bitcoin is trying to hold its ground. And this is what I'm saying though. Every time you get a push up that fails, you know, that chance of dropping back down goes up quite a bit. I bought that book, TA of Financial Markets. Your recommendation is really helpful. Thanks. Yeah, no problem, mate. No problem. You just hit me up on Instagram. All right, yeah, I'll take a look at that. I'm gonna wrap up the stream anyway, so I'll shoot you a reply. But yeah, thanks for reaching out. Yeah, ladies and gents, I think with that, I'm pretty much ready to sign off. Thank you all for the amazing live stream. I love doing these. Obviously, most of the time we do videos, but you know, it is my absolute pleasure to come on with a live stream today. Hopefully, we can do a lot more of these over time. Especially, you know, if the market stays super volatile, you know me, I'll be here. So yeah, I'm probably gonna call it here. Thank you all very much. See you all in the next one. Subscribe, bell, likes, all that good stuff. Take it easy, ladies and gents. Cheers.